And right now, we are 2 minutes away from the end of the trading day. Romaine Bostick here with Katie Greifeld, taking you through to that closing bell. It's a global simulcast. There's Carol Massar. There's Tim Stenovec in the radio booth. Welcome to our audiences across all of our Bloomberg platforms, including YouTube, here on the final trading day of the month and the quarter. Right now, looking at an S&P 500 and a Dow and the Russell 2000 locking in a fifth straight month of gains.
Yeah, pretty significant, right? We saw some buying into the close here. We saw that in like the last half an hour or so of trading. I'm just looking at the S&P 500, folks. In the third quarter, it's up about 8%. So not too shabby if you're a bull in this market.
If the government shuts down tonight, do we still have to come in tomorrow?
When did you become Debbie Downer?
I'm just wondering. Is that, do we come in?
The show must go on, Tim.
Okay. You know, we asked Jan van Eck whether we should care, whether investors should care about the government shutting down. In a word, he said no. We care about fiscal policy, monetary policy. We care about technology. And he said, government shutdown is not going to change fiscal policy.
No, it may not, but I think there are some implications to this shutdown that differ than what we saw in 2018, certainly what we saw back in 2013 and even beyond that. You're talking about shutdowns that were maybe a little bit more genteel in nature. I think some of the rhetoric, and if they make good on some of that rhetoric, we could actually see much more of an impact than in the past.
And you think about the urgent question. Romaine brought up the point that, I mean, if we don't get that government data on Friday when it comes to the Federal Reserve and their rate cutting cycle, there's a lot of questions there.
Yeah, and we talk about the idea that a market is pretty much perched at those record highs, a market that, of course, wants to move higher, but they really do need, or at least they think they need some help from the Fed to do that. If the Fed doesn't have the data, then maybe you don't get the move. Nevertheless, we lock in the gains on the day, on the month, and on the quarter. An S&P 500 higher by just 0.4%, but that's up 27 points on the day. Good enough for a 3.5% gain on the month and an 8% run over the past three. The Dow Jones Industrial Average posting similar gains here on the day, up about 0.2%, and also closing out higher by about 2% on the month. The NASDAQ Composite and the NASDAQ 100 each up on the day and about 5.5% on the month. And the Russell 2000, your relative laggard, it is adding on the day, but for the month, only up by about 3% relative to the rest of the space.
All right, S&P 500 on this final trading day of September and final trading day of the third quarter. You got 301 names, Katie, to the upside, 201 to the downside. If I look, Katie, at the third quarter, AppLovin, your best performer, and then you've got, I think, FactSet at the bottom of the pack.
Oh, yeah.
All right, there you have it. Let's take a look at the circle of sectors right now. You can see there's a lot of green here. Big tech really doing a lot of heavy lifting. So, too, did healthcare on the day. We know that Pfizer agreeing to lower drug prices in exchange for some relief on tariffs. That is boosting the entire sector. In terms of what isn't doing so well right now, energy, consumer discretionary, communication services, some of your downward weights on the index. But overall, green on the screen.
All right, so let's get to some of the individual gainers, if I may. And let's go to CoreWeave, guys, because this one up 16.5% at its highs today, finishing the day with a gain of just shy of 12%. You know, one of the neoclouds, businesses that rent out access to leading AI chips, while the stock rallying after the company signed a deal to supply Meta platforms with as much as $14.2 billion worth of computing power. It runs through December 2031 with an option to extend through 2032. So talk about some visibility with additional capacity. And what's really key about this, and we talked to our Ed Ludlow about this, is why you saw really the stock rally, is that it kind of diversifies business away at CoreWeave, away from Microsoft, so expands who its top customers are. So this is why potentially you saw this one rally, particularly in today's session. Again, keep in mind, it IPO'd this year. It's up about 273% year to date. About 10% of the float is short, but definitely one of the outperformers here so far in 2025. All right, Pfizer, got to talk about the pharmaceuticals. Higher today, many of the names top in the S&P 500. In fact, Pfizer is your number one gainer in the S&P with that 7% gain. We did have President Trump speaking earlier at the White House, saying Pfizer's agreed to offer countless prescription medications at major discounts in the U.S. as a result of the most favored nation drug pricing order. We did also see the Pfizer CEO at the White House. Pfizer will get a 3-year grace period from President Trump's pharma tariff. So a lot going on and implications for the pharmaceutical sector, including Pfizer. And then, just because I like French fries, I'm going to do Lamb Weston. This stock up almost 9% at its highs today, finishing with a gain of more than 4% here. This after the company reported adjusted earnings per share and net sales for the first quarter that beat consensus estimates due to improved restaurant foot traffic. Apparently, chicken fast food restaurants in particular saw more visitors. Excuse me.
They're everywhere now. You know,
French fries?
No, like these Raising Cane's and all these chicken places. Like they were never anywhere, and now they're everywhere.
I know.
I can't get rid of them.
With French fries.
Did you see Wendy's has new tendies?
Oh.
Tendies?
Pick up there, Tim.
Okay, I thought you guys were. I didn't want to jump in.
I don't want to go down that rabbit hole.
Let's go. Let's do decliners here. I want to talk about Spotify shares falling 4.2%. This after the company said that CEO Daniel Ek is transitioning his role to chairman, leaving his leadership in the hands of co-CEOs Gustav Soderstrom and Alex Nordstrom. Ek will continue to provide support and guidance, and Soderstrom and Nordstrom will jointly take the reins of the company effective January 1st. I mean, it makes sense, but I was surprised. 20 years ago, pretty much, 2006 is when he started Spotify. So he's only 42 years old, but he's been at the helm of this for 19 years. He'll still be very involved in the company. He said, I'll remain deeply involved in the big defining decisions about our future. Still shareholders sending shares lower today, 4.2%. Also, shares of companies that do sports betting, such as DraftKings, falling today. DraftKings down 11.6% after Robinhood posted September to date trading metrics late yesterday that showed contracts traded were about 187 million. Robinhood has emerged as a competitor to sports betting platforms like DraftKings and FanDuel, as bettors are allowed to trade contracts on the outcomes of sporting events through Robinhood, so increased competition for those pure play sports betting apps. And finally, some late breaking movers, Zillow and Rocket Companies. I want to focus on Rocket Companies. It's the parent company of Redfin. Rocket Companies falling today close to 4%, 3.8% down. The FTC sued to block a partnership between Zillow and Rocket Companies, saying that it would reduce the number of websites offering apartment listings and drive up advertising prices. This partnership was announced back in February. It involved an upfront payment of $100 million from Zillow to Redfin to help Zillow enter into advertising agreements with property managers that post listings on Redfin's sites. The FTC said the arrangement combines two of the three largest internet listing service, and it's seeking a divestiture of Zillow's assets. Zillow fell, by the way, by 4.3% as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to point out, too, honorable mention, keep an eye on some of those consumer finance stocks, a big drop in Capital One and some of the other credit card companies. Meanwhile, in the yield space, a relatively quiet end to the month. But we should point out that overall, you did see actually a drop in yields over the course of the month. And actually, on a price basis here, you actually had some pretty decent returns when it comes to not only the Treasury market, but, of course, the corporate fixed income space as well.
All right, so remember we were all at home and we all were working from home and we were creating spaces in our home for home offices, and we thought, you know, we're not going to have to go to the office as much, and even after the pandemic was over. Well, it turns out, as we all know, yes, employers want us back in the office. And what's interesting is, Tim, what's turning out as we report, our Sarah Rappaport, everybody is now turning their home offices into other spaces.
Okay, so those other spaces include things like Pilates studios, a golf simulator room,
Nice.
cigar lounges,
Okay.
Keep going.
and places for your kids to go.
Ah,
I think that's what mostly people are doing. I don't
He
see
doesn't
many.
need any more room.
I got to tell you, never been to a cigar lounge inside someone's house.
Yeah, it
But maybe I'm
sounds-
just not hanging out at the right places with the right people.
Sounds a little stinky. I will say there are some great photos in this article. One of them is of a room that's focused on flower arranging. It just sounds like these people are swimming in space.
How many flowers are they arranging?
I don't know.
How do you do
I
that
don't
while you're going to
actually-
if you go to the office every day, how are you able to arrange flowers?
When you go home on the weekend.
Oh, okay.
Where's all this free time?
Your ample free time and your
Yeah.
ample space in your house. Let's talk about another story that caught our eye. Of course, we're awaiting Nike results. There was a great story on the terminal today.
What would you put in your room?
My room?
Yeah, if you had a free room and you could just make it.
Well, horses are really big. I'd probably just have a room for my cat, but
You said that a cigar lounge sounds stinky, but having a horse inside
Yeah,
your
that
home, I
sounds
think
definitely
that's
sticky.
no, I crave the smell of
they
horses.
kick the wall,
Anyway,
too.
let's talk a little bit about New York City's running boom. As I mentioned, we're awaiting Nike results. There was a great story
So
about
horses
how
and running. This is like the Katie Greifeld special today.
I know, or it was going to be. But the running boom, apparently it has generated an estimated $934 million for New York City's economy in the fiscal year through March. A lot of that is driven by out-of-town visitors, of course, coming in for the marathon and the like.
Yeah, I just want to bring you some breaking news. The redhead crossing the Bloomberg terminal, the president of the United States, Donald Trump, saying that the U.S. has reached a deal with Harvard. We should just point out, I have no extra details on exactly what this is, but he is speaking right now in the Oval Office. You can see him there. We're going to try to get you some more details on that. But of course, the president picking a lot of fights with some of the higher institutions in this nation. And some of those institutions have sought to settle with the U.S. government. Trump now saying that a deal apparently has been reached with Harvard University.
All right, we'll look for some more information in terms of the specifics on that deal.